This is Swarfcast. I'm Noah Graff.
It is July 31st, 2026.
I think so.
And I am with my boss, my business partner, my mentor, the one and only
Lloyd. Let me think if I can remember the name. Graff, yes.
You know, sometimes people call me Mr. Noah, and I say, only my dad calls me that. It's just true. We're going on vacation next week. And what is it? The year is 2/3 over, I guess. And we're
Not really. It'll be 2/3 over at the end of August.
okay. So the main things on our mind are the Cubs at the trading deadline. And what else? What were we talking about?
Well, we're talking about trading machines too, and selling machines, and what the market is going to be like for the rest of the year and going into next year. And that will dictate decisions that we make. And I'm sure it will also dictate the decisions of our clients. So
Let's tell everybody what we've been doing. And this is totally off the cuff. We haven't really talked about this prior to the interview, but let's tell people about the machines that have been successful at selling so far this year.
well, I think
It's a variety.
It's been interesting because it's been cheap machines like Davenports and expensive machines like late model CNC machines and CNC multis.
Yeah. Well, I guess people might find it interesting. We purchased an INDEX MS22-8, manufactured 2019 with a partner at an auction. And brand new, this machine goes for over $3 million. And we were asking a very tidy sum for the machine. Do you want to tell people what we were asking? Is that okay? I mean, we did have it.
Well, we're asking over $1.4 million.
Yeah, we were asking around $1.5 million for the machine. And the thing is, even though something is worth that,
Who's to say it's worth that? It's worth it if somebody pays it.
right. But the problem is nobody has that kind of money sitting in their pocket to buy a used machine, even if theoretically it's an amazing deal. We came very close. We were on the 1 yard line with one company, a very big corporation. And then it went up the rung. And then at the very end, they said, oh, well, the machine we already have has 4 Y-axis, and this only has 2 Y-axis. I think it was an excuse to shoot it down.
Yeah, it may very well have been a political battle within the big company. And that's why it's difficult to sell expensive machines,
Even
to big companies and to small companies, because small companies don't have access to that kind of money.
right. But at the same time, it's interesting to sell big machines because that's where you have leverage. You know, if you're selling a $30,000 machine, there's only so much margin you can make to pay the bills. So it was an item that lots of people thought was very interesting, but nobody was willing to pay that much money for it. So we got creative, and through a little serendipity, I was texting with somebody, an old customer, and talking about one machine, a different index. And then he says to me, texting, hey, I have an idea for a trade. And so I said, all right, well, tell me more. And in the end, we end up making a trade of our machine for his multi-Swiss Tornos machine, 2017 machine, 8,500 cutting hours, plus cash for our machine. I think in the end will make sense for both of us. He really wanted an index. His multi-Swiss operator is retiring. And so his people wanted another index. And so now we have this beautiful multi-Swiss 826. It's an 8-spindle, 26 millimeter machine. It can do a lot of the same things that an index can do, but not quite the same. And so now we've gone from trying to sell one machine to trying to sell another big machine for a lot less money, but still a lot of money. And we'll see what happens.
And for all we know, we might end up with a trade on that too. Because what we are finding out is even if the new price of a CNC multi or a
transfer machine.
or any kind of exotic machine that has a limited market because there aren't that many buyers for such a sophisticated machine or such an expensive machine, it's hard to sell.
I also think that certain machines, people buy that machine new.
They buy it new because the new manufacturer can set it up for them.
They have a job. If you're going to buy a machine that's over $1 million, you have to have a job. It's not something you spec on generally. So you're trying to change somebody's mind, how it works psychologically, to pay a lot of money for a used machine, even if they think there's value there. It's just not in people's normal thought pattern. They might think, all right, maybe I can pay $300,000 for a used machine, but to pay $1 million for a used machine or $800,000 for a used machine, it just doesn't compute. Even if it's half price, even if it's a third of the price.
Right. And now we're going to be experimenting on late model Swiss machines to see if people will pay half price of new
or 2/3 of the price of new
for a machine, 4 or 5 years old. Yeah, and again, it's a bit of an unknown for us. There's certainly tremendous demand for such a machine, but the question of pricing it is unknown. But that's the business we're in, and that's what makes it so interesting and so challenging for me. And people ask me, you're still working? Why are you still working? What's the, what's the deal? Why, you're over 80 years old, Lloyd. Why are you still pursuing this business? And the answer,
you don't have to, you could retire.
Yeah. The answer is because I find it fascinating, because I find it so challenging and so difficult. It is not easy. And it's not like managing a whole bunch of people. It's like much different. It's assessing risk. It's a bit like gambling. And then it's about connections and it's about relationships with people. And all of these things are just wonderful and they keep me alive. They keep me connected. If I didn't have a relationship with you and the relationship with my customers and the challenge of what do you buy, what do you not buy, how much do you pay, how do you get out of this mistake, why did you do that stupid thing? All of these things, really, they keep me alive. If I didn't have it, I think I would wither.
When the company, such as Graff-Pinkert, knows both the buyer and the seller, it was a great great fit. And that made all the difference in the world, because they knew our desires, and they knew the company purchasing KMY. They knew that they were looking, and they put the two together just perfectly. You've been in the business all these years, know and have a great wealth of knowledge of your customers. That was very, very helpful.
Why don't we talk about some of the other things?
Well, you did a podcast about some entrepreneurial guys
Oh, yeah.
who went into the business of buying surplus tungsten.
Yeah, tungsten carbide.
Right. And I find this fascinating because the price of tungsten has gone way up. And since people use cutting tools that almost always have tungsten as one of the key ingredients, because it's about the hardest metal that there is, it's directly related to the machining business. It's also directly related to China.
Yes.
So these are both interesting aspects of our business that I think are worth talking.
And the tungsten comes from China.
Tungsten comes from China.
And we've tariffed the tungsten. Not we, but somebody in charge has tariffed the tungsten. So that's made it like a scarce commodity. We can't bring any more in.
Well, not just that. The Chinese control the tungsten market because they produce like 80% of the tungsten that is available in the world.
Yeah. And these guys, they're very interesting people. I if you're looking to listen, watch a podcast with some colorful guys, it's these guys. They're from New Jersey, upstate New York, but they're really cool.
And they knew nothing about tungsten, right?
Well, no. They both worked in construction, and that was how they found out about it. It was a really cool story. One of the guys, I guess he had been dabbling because he worked in construction, so he knew about surplus carbide. And on the side, he was, buying some, and he knew of an independent place to recycle it and to resell it to. Then his son got cancer and was in the hospital. And I think he couldn't do his regular day job. So he started doing this. He started going around and collecting. And then he called his cousin, Joey, in Florida. And he said, hey, let's do this together. And they both started doing it, and they've been growing and growing. And they found us on LinkedIn because you wrote an article about tungsten carbide and the scarcity of it. In any case, one of the things they talk about, it's not just...
Well, you can, if you're a manufacturer, you can simply send your used carbide back to Kennametal or Sandvik,
right,
or ISCA.
And they'll do a buyback.
Yeah.
And they'll buy it and sell it back to you. But the problem is you don't know, when what they say is when you sell it to them, they pay you the price of the metal, but only the price of the metal like a month later after they get it. So you really don't know what you're going to get for their metal. Whereas these guys, they will come to your shop, they'll give you cash on the spot in any kind of way you want it. I don't know about Bitcoin, and then they have an independent place they go. But they've also made it into this, there's a patriotism aspect for them. They do not want this tungsten carbide going overseas, particularly to China, but they don't want it going to anybody outside the United States, both, I think, because of the scarcity of it and also because it can be used to make weapons.
Yes. So this is actually basic capitalism we see here, because these are some independent guys going around to independent shops, offering them a better price, or at least in the form that people wanted, rather than a buyback from Kennametal or Sandvik or Iskar. And then finding an independent scrap dealer who will give them a better price, so it enables them to make a margin.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a really great business. They seem very energized, and
It only makes sense because the price of tungsten has virtually doubled in the past year, and and Kennametal and Iskar and Sandvik are making most of their money these days on the spread between what people used to get for tungsten and what it's really worth today. So they've raised the price of their cutting tools. They haven't raised the price that they're paying on the buyback.
no, supposedly they buy back for whatever the actual market price is.
So what you're saying is that the independent people are paying cash
That day. So you know what you're getting. So theoretically, you could be somebody who has a whole bunch of carbide, and you could watch the metal price and decide, I want to sell it this day, as opposed to you're just at the mercy of when they're going to send you their payment. Supposedly it's a month, but who knows how easy it is to do with them. And I think, this patriotism thing, and it brings us to tariffs and onshoring. Sometimes I like to look back at our podcasts from back in the day. We've been doing this podcast since spring of 2018, I believe. So that's
8 years.
Over 8 years.
Yeah.
And I remember many years ago doing it with somebody who was an expert on onshoring. I don't remember what organization they worked for. And we were both very skeptical of it. We were both.
Wasn't it that guy who lived in Panama?
No. It's a different guy.
Okay.
But anyways, at the time, it still seemed like anecdotal that there was onshoring. And now...
it makes sense that there should be onshoring, but it wasn't really happening. It was happening in just tiny little dribbles of work coming back.
Right. And it was stuff coming back to Mexico and Canada. It wasn't just stuff going back to the United States. And now, like them or don't like them, tariffs, that is very influential in it happening, right? Would you say?
That's what we've been told by our clients, that onshoring is real because it's not so much about price. It's about fear of what prices might be, and it's about fear of what the Chinese might do. Let's say if there was an invasion of Taiwan.
I thought it was just because of our draconian tariffs.
It's partly because of that, because the tariffs are unpredictable with China.
Which we like to use as an excuse of why people didn't buy a lot of equipment from us at the beginning of the year.
And I think it is true. I think that
if people don't know, a lot of people told us business is good, but we don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. So this is a good excuse not to buy any used equipment.
And we've been hearing that for the past 2 years at least, maybe more.
Yeah. But it seems like we've broken through to some extent.
I think so. I think that to some degree people are being forced to buy because they have an avalanche of orders. But I also think that there's a genuine fear by big companies that they cannot have crucial production in China. It isn't so much a price. It's about deliveries and potentially not knowing what's going to happen between the U.S.-China relationship. The other thing I'm hearing from clients is their customers are saying, we're not worried about price. We'll accept price raises. What we want is quality, and we want certainty of delivery. And with China, they may be able to get price, but they cannot get certainty of delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And they cannot get certainty of quality. So while China can still undercut the United States manufacturers on price, price is not the only thing that dictates decisions.
True. So we were also talking about defense and drones, et cetera. You have an interesting take on it. You read more than me. What have you been reading, and what's your thinking?
Well, I think that aerospace business is now extremely important in the contract machining world. And not just contract, but in the machining world, period. In an airplane, there's a huge amount of fasteners. There's a huge amount of machined parts. And aircraft are being produced in very large quantities now. For several years, Boeing was in a complete mess, particularly on commercial airliners. This has finally been resolved over the past year and a half. And Boeing is getting enormous orders, as is their European competitor. So in the various
It must be nice to be in a duopoly where no matter what you do, people still need you because there's nobody else to make that product.
Right. In airliners, that's true, although, you have smaller airline manufacturers.
Embraer.
And Gulfstream and people like this. But then in military, you have Lockheed and then you have the Grumman and you have the engine makers, and General Electric and Pratt and Whitney and Rolls-Royce and various other people. So there is just an awful lot of work in aerospace. There is also a lot of work in the ammunition field. And this is not coming just from the United States. From what we understand, contracts that have been delayed and delayed and delayed by countries, Australia being one of them, have finally decided that, hey, we better do this, and the United States, which has had enough ammunition until they didn't have enough ammunition, is now hurriedly giving out orders for more and more ammunition. So this is another aspect of what appears to be pushing the contract machining world. Automotive seems like it is not the place where people really want to be unless they've always been there, and so they're going to stay there to some degree. But we keep hearing more and more from people who say, I've had enough of automotive. They push me around. They're so incredibly demanding as far as quality and as far as passing this test and this test and this test before they'll even order.
Right, and you make a couple pennies apart.
And people are saying, I don't need that anymore, particularly when for other industries, the issue is delivery and quality. For automotive, it's price and delivery and quality are givens.
Yeah.
So, while automotive is still out there, but there's lesser need for contract manufacturing because of the move towards electric vehicles, and they require fewer parts. So the growth is not there. The growth is not also in construction. Unfortunately, the construction industry, certainly the housing industry in the United States is flat, and it's been flat for a number of years, and it doesn't show any signs of changing radically with higher interest rates. Yeah, and then you have the natural resources, which is definitely a growing field, with oil and natural gas, but also mining. I mean, because there is danger in mining in countries where you have governments that are unreliable, people are looking again, despite all the restrictions, to do mining in the United States. The government is actually backing some of that, and you may actually see tungsten being mined in the United States again.
This is a strange question. It's a paradox. What surprises are you predicting? I sound like Abraham, my son. Like, oh, we have a surprise for you. What is it? What's a contrarian prediction you have? As you always have good contrarian predictions.
Okay, a contrarian prediction is that since men are not going to college in anywhere near the amount they had, let's say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, the percentage of women in colleges is now 60% and men 40%.
I thought it was 66 like a zillion years ago. Are you sure it's even that lopsided?
It's around 60 the last I saw.
Okay.
So that means fewer and fewer men deciding to go to college because they don't want to accumulate the debt. And they don't see the opportunities in the jobs that they used to get. Like, I want to be a programmer. I want to be an accountant. I want to be a lawyer. Well, those aren't necessarily great jobs to go into today, particularly if AI is going to take over, so much of the white collar world. But what you do have a need for is people who can run factories and people who can work in factories.
Right
So
now,
my contrarian view is that more and more people are going to go to vocational school and technical school, and you will see a turnaround in the amount of people available for machining. But you will also see the pay for machining work go up dramatically, and you're going to see people making routinely $50 an hour for machining jobs.
Well, if there's a bigger supply of people who want to go do it, wouldn't that make the wages go down?
But the demand for quality people will continue to be high, and contract manufacturing people will wake up and decide, if I want to hire somebody, I'm going to have to pay them.
Why is it that despite all of this, universities are harder than ever to get into?
Well, it depends on what universities you're talking about. If you look at a school like Western Illinois, they have half their dorms empty. It depends on the school. If you look at Harvard, if you look at Yale, if you look at those schools, why are they still in demand? Because they refuse to take more students.
That's true. But I'm talking about schools like University of Wisconsin, UCLA. UCLA is like one of the hardest schools to get into.
And why is that?
Why is it? It's big.
I'll tell you why. Because they have not increased their student population in years and years. They're still taking the same amount of people in their freshman class that they took 10 years ago.
And you're just saying that with population increases, they need to be taking more?
Well, there's still a demand, particularly by women, to go into the healthcare field, which is still growing rapidly. So there still is a demand for college education. It isn't necessarily to be computer programmers anymore.
No.
It's to be nurses. And there's a shortage of nurses. There's a shortage of people.
Doctors.
Not so much doctors, but yes, doctors. Because why? Because like the number of people in the med school at the University of Chicago hasn't gone up in 10 years. And again, I've asked why to various people who are influential in the medical field. It's because they don't want to. They don't want.
They want this whole LVMH brand thing. They want to be scarce like a Rolex. If you start letting more people in, then they're going to want to go to this other school that doesn't let people.
Well, also, there's been all this consolidation in hospitals too. So they are not interested in training doctors. So it's the universities that are left to training doctors. And universities don't seem to have a great incentive to expand the population of people in med school. So therefore, again, the number of doctors who are coming out of medical school in the United States is a very small amount compared to the need. What do you think is a surprise that's coming? Do you think people are going to start to have more children?
I mean, it's just one of those paradox questions. What's the surprise that's coming? I'm having trouble with this question. What I will say, and I'm not that original with it. Stephanie and I, my wife and I, have made an investment. We're going to invest a little bit more in GLP-1 stocks, like weight loss stocks, and like Lilly or Novo Nordisk, because this guy I listen to, Scott Galloway, who's this great investment guru, he says that in the next 10 years, that is going to be a bigger development in the world than AI. Is that true? I don't know, but I mean, it does seem like every day these GLP-1s do something new and miraculous that we didn't think they could do. And that's interesting to me. You wonder how that'll...
Do you know how they developed the first GLP-1 drug?
I do not.
Came from testing the venom of a Gila monster.
No, I thought you were going to say that, but I thought that was for diabetes. I guess this is diabetes.
It was originally developed for diabetes, and still is used.
So, how are you sure it was for this medicine? Was the Gila monster saliva?
Yes,
I thought it was a different one. How on earth did somebody think of testing saliva from a Gila monster? Or is it a Gila monster?
I think that they were looking at it for something else, and it was some serendipitous finding. And somebody said, that if people were bitten by Gila monsters, their appetites decreased. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, that's one for ChatGPT.
Well, that brings up something else, and that is how important is our life with using ChatGPT over just the past year?
How important is our life, or how important in our lives?
In our lives.
Yeah, I'm afraid that it may be.
What did you use it for today?
Oh, today, the first thing I used it for was I bought these amazing spreads from the farmer's market yesterday. I paid too much money. I don't want to say how much. It was like some baba ganoush and some special hummus and I was going to bring it on vacation with us.
Uh-huh.
And we left it on the kitchen counter. And I was just like, oh no. And Stephanie's like, all right, go check it with ChatGPT, because she doesn't it annoys the crap out of her how much I use ChatGPT. And then it said, no, man, I'm sorry to say it's tough luck. It's not going to be, if it sits out for 3 hours, even if it smells good, and tastes good, I'd be afraid to use it.
3 hours?
It goes to the internet, which goes to all these like health people that, they're extra paranoid. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was going to this database of machines and then putting it into Claude, and Claude making like a call list for us. So we're purchasing a Star SR32. And so now we have a list of a bunch of customers all organized to do that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I think it's possible that, like in the bathroom, I was on Gemini looking at who maybe the Cubs could trade for. That's often, but I tell you, man, I love talking sports with AI until they suddenly start like naming players from like 2 seasons ago. And what's really weird is I'll say back like, no, go to ESPN, check who's, and then it starts naming like another one, and it just starts getting worse and worse and worse. And I use it maybe a little too much. I'm giving, sort of becomes like a second diary for me, talking about things that are on my mind.
Can somebody check what you use ChatGPT for?
Well, I have a premium version, so it's supposed to keep my deep, dark secrets. What deep, dark secrets did you use it for today?
I used it this morning to check how long a CT scan would take, because my wife was going to take a CT scan ahead of a hip replacement surgery.
And what did it say?
It said it would take 5 to 10 minutes for a CT scan.
And how long did it take?
It took 5 to 10 minutes, and she was greatly relieved before she went, knowing that was likely all it would take. So it was useful in that respect. It swashed her.
No, I mean, it's like every day. I feel like yesterday I cut my finger in the morning on a piece of exercise equipment, and I didn't know how to treat it. And then it told me what to do. And then it said to go to urgent care. I went to urgent care, but first it gave me the worst case scenario. It was like, well, you're going on vacation next week. You're probably not going to get to swim. And then last weekend, my air conditioner broke. And then again, I was sitting in bed doing ChatGPT, and it gave me the worst case scenario. It's like, well, you might have to replace it. It could cost $15,000. But it said, call the HVAC and then find out. You may not have to. And then turned out I called the HVAC, and all that needed to be replaced was the capacitor. And I made a serendipity video about it, because as some people listen to this now, I make a video about serendipity and put it on YouTube every week. And I put that video up today. It was about how I was really happy to have only had to pay $629. It was about $300 for this capacitor. And then he replaced my filter in the house, which was filthy. You know, filthy and filter are the same root. And I feel like our allergies are getting better. And then he said that our air conditioner may actually last longer than the fancy ones right next to it. Our air conditioner that is 22 years old, probably jinxing it right now. So I put it on YouTube, and several people commented and somebody said, man, you paid way too much for that repair, and you're using AI, and people aren't thinking anymore, and you don't need to use AI, and all you needed to do was go in and fix the capacitor this way. And I was just like, dude, I'm toiling making YouTube videos, not fixing capacitors. Let the professionals do that. On that note, anything else you'd like to say to the people of the world? I think I'm ready to drop the mic.
Live each day.
Yeah. Savor every moment.
Thank you, Noah.
Thank you. Let's do it again soon.